Someone who is a friend versus someone being friendly. Someone who is a friend. The word friend tends to be one of those catch-all words that refers more to someone who is friendly. However, just because a person is friendly doesn't mean that they are a friend. It simply means they are being friendly. Just because a person is friendly doesn't mean that you have enough in common with them to work towards building a friendship with them. And it also doesn't mean that they have friendly intentions. For many of us, the word friend starts being misused in childhood. It's common for many parents to ask their child after the first day of school if they made any new friends, or a child may refer to anyone who was friendly towards them as a friend. As children get older, they often continue this thinking that anyone who is friendly is a friend, or that they feel guilty or obligated to be friends with people who are friendly towards them, even if that person is hurtful to them. It's very important to be able to distinguish the difference between a friendly person, an acquaintance, a friend, and an enemy. A friendly person is someone who is friendly. You may or may not know them or have anything in common with them. They may or may not have good intentions. All you know about them is that they are friendly. You can be friendly back if you feel comfortable with that, but if you aren't comfortable with them for any reason, it's also okay to distance yourself from them. An acquaintance is not a friend, and they may or may not be friendly. They are simply someone you are acquainted with. Most acquaintances tend to be someone that you know on a more surface level, such as a neighbor, a coworker, or a great aunt. The level of sharing is usually kept at a minimal level, and the conversation usually stays at a pleasant and polite level, or what I like to think of as dinner party manners. The next level of an acquaintance might be a work friend or a school friend, where the level of sharing and time spent is greater than that of an acquaintance, but not to the level of depth of a friend. You might find yourself talking about your relationships or personal health issues, but mainly because you spend a lot of time with this person and feel relatively safe in opening up around them. They might be someone you'd invite over for your child's graduation party, but they aren't someone you'd go on vacation with. A friend is someone who is kind, compassionate, considerate, and who has your best interest in mind. A friend is someone who has consistent actions over time that show that they are trustworthy and someone you feel safe being emotionally vulnerable with. A friend is someone that you enjoy being around and someone who is there for you and who can celebrate your successes in life, as well as be there to support you through the down times. Friendship is a state of mutual trust and support between two people. If that's not there, then it's not a friendship. And if you are the one who continues to give trust and support when they don't do the same, you will forever experience hurt and heartache by the imbalance. There is a history of mutual trust and support between the two of you. Friends are people that are in your inner circle, and it's really important to make sure that you only have people that have your best interest in mind in your inner circle. Once you make the shift to having people in your inner circle based on how they treat you instead of how you feel about them, your life will radically begin to change as you are now seeing things clearly. As it really doesn't matter if you love them or if you feel guilty for not continually being there for them, or obligated to stay in touch because they are a parent, or because you've known them since high school, or are fearful of what others might think. If they have a pattern of being hurtful or harmful to you, or the dynamic is one-sided, you might as well let go of it, because there's nothing there anyhow. Someone who is being friendly. One of the biggest tools in an abuser's toolkit is charm. Many highly problematic people out there tend to come across as friendly, and their friendly behavior is how they get people, both children and adults, to lower their guard, so that they can use, abuse, or exploit them. A friend is not someone who actively controls, uses, abuses, or exploits you in any way, or has a history of treating you this way. A friend is not someone who gossips about you, sabotages, undermines, grinds you down, has behavior that leaves you doubting your sanity or feeling like they are toxic or an energy vampire. Friends don't cause intentional hurt or harm to each other. and they for sure don't treat each other with disdain, aggression, hostility, or contempt. Friends don't tease you about things you are sensitive about, put you down, pressure you into having sex with them, or spend time with you hoping that if they are nice enough to you for a long enough period of time, that you will break down and have sex with them. Friends don't send each other sexy pictures or secretly hope for a relationship with the other person. Friends also don't run hot and cold to where they are really nice and fun to be around some of the time, and then other times are cruel or rude. It's also worth noting that narcissists are notorious for having a harem of former, current, and future sex partners around them, whether they message these people online or actually see them in person. They often claim that these people are friends and spin their outrageous flirtatious and inappropriate behavior to blame their partner for being jealous and insecure. It's not jealous or insecure if you have an issue with your partner messaging sexy friends for prolonged periods of time, especially if they are hiding their phone, not wanting to message that other person in front of you, not wanting you to meet these other people, or are willing to end your relationship because you aren't okay with their friendship with this person. This is not what friendship looks like. It's what cheating looks like. And frankly, you'd be better off figuring how to leave them instead of arguing with them and trying to get them to see how outrageous and inappropriate their behavior is, because they know it's wrong. They just don't want to stop or be bothered about it. Make no mistake, if you were to act in the same way, they'd be mad as hell. An enemy is someone who not only doesn't have your best interest in mind, but who is also actively working against you. Enemies use, abuse, exploit, manipulate, lie, deceive, steal, create chaos, and undermine you in whatever way they want to in order to get their needs met. Enemies can often come across as friendly, but don't mistake an enemy being friendly as them having changed or as them being a friend. Like the saying goes, don't mistake an enemy's smile for them baring their teeth. If someone has a hidden agenda or is abusive or cruel towards you, they are not your friend. They are an enemy and someone you should steer clear of as much as possible. It can feel harsh referring to someone as an enemy, and by all means you don't need to refer to them as such if you aren't comfortable doing so. What's important here is that you understand the difference between a friend and an enemy, so you don't get guilted back into being friends with someone who acts friendly, but whose actions are intended to harm you. These frenemies are some of the most destructive people out there because they'll cause a ton of damage in your life and pretend to care about you the whole time. News story. Learning what a friend really is was such an aha moment for me. Before, I was always friends with people because we had certain things in common, or because they were friendly or funny or what have you, and I kept finding myself in friendships that either fizzled out, or those friends turned abusive, or that they weren't there when I needed them. I realized that there was never that state of mutual trust and support. It was always one-sided, and that I had this pattern of rescuing people, friends, family members, total strangers, men I dated, you name it. I was always there to listen to them when they had issues, but they were never there for me. What's interesting is that I've since realized that my healthier friends felt the same way about me, that I would only call them if I was single or in crisis. Now that I realize how out of balance my life was, I've made some major steps to get things more in balance. I no longer make the man I'm dating my whole life, and I no longer put my friendships and hobbies on the back burner. I make sure to keep my real friendships and hobbies going, and my life is so much better. Respecting versus respectfully. Respecting. True respect is a deep state of appreciation and admiration that's earned over time. Not everyone out there is deserving of our respect, especially if they behave in a morally reprehensible way. Respectfully. Treating a person respectfully is the basis of pleasant and polite interaction and is usually how people with manners treat others. It's also the basis of what most people would consider the foundation of appropriate interaction with another person and a basic human right. Even the laws for murderers and child molesters abide by the concepts that they will not be treated in ways that are cruel or unusual. There is the expectation that no matter how vile a person's behavior is, that as a society, they will be given basic rights. They have the right to food, clothing, shelter, safety, and being treated with dignity and respect. So while we don't respect their behavior, or even them, they do have the right to basic human rights, simply because they are living beings. Abusive people will often tell their targets that they treat them abusively because the target isn't worthy of being treated respectfully, because the target hasn't earned it. This is the typical abuser's mentality, and please don't get caught up in thinking that you need to somehow earn the right to be treated like a human being. I also want to clarify something, because I could see how an abuser could twist this concept into insisting that the target reopens contact or is somehow obligated to keep them in their life, and if they don't, then the target is treating them with a lack of dignity and respect. Please know that you are not obligated to keep a toxic person in your life, and that you setting these boundaries is not you being disrespectful to them. You doing so is self-protective and a reasonable consequence to their actions, and is you treating yourself with dignity and respect. If you are in a relationship, friendship, or any other dynamic that is costing you your dignity and self-respect to stay in it, you are in an abusive relationship. New story. My ex-husband used to always tell me that he treated me the way he did because respect was something that was earned, and that I hadn't earned it. And instead of divorcing him, which is what I wish I would have done sooner, I kept trying to prove to him that I was worthy of being treated respectfully. I realize now that treating another person respectfully is how normal, decent people treat each other, and that isn't something that needs to be earned. Having respect for someone is something that needs to be earned, but that's not required in order to treat someone respectfully. I will never again tolerate being ground down or treated with such disrespect, and I made damn sure that my children understand that how they were treated wasn't okay either, and for them to not tolerate or justify ever being treated like that by someone, let alone their spouse. Molly. A parent versus a predator. A parent. Anyone who is fertile can have a child. It is not a crowning achievement to have a baby or to get someone pregnant. It is a biological function. Where the crowning achievement part comes in is in the parenting skills after the birth of the baby happens. For many people, their true parent is the same as their biological parent, but this isn't always the case, and I think it's important to separate out these concepts. A true parent is someone who actually does the job of raising, nurturing, taking care of, and loving a child. A biological parent is one that brought the child into the world. They may or may not play an active part in that child's life. Many times, outsiders will insist that a child go the extra mile to keep communication open with a parent who completely abandoned them, or who they do know but who has made little to no effort to be in their life because they think, well, but that person is your mother or father. Just because a person has a child doesn't make them a parent. It's their parenting of that child that makes them a parent. Many times, children who have been adopted feel a driving need to find their real parents, oftentimes much to the hurt and heartache of their adoptive parents who actually raised them. It's one thing for a person to want to find their bio parent, but it's another to totally discount the job that adoptive parents did and to think of it in terms of them just being long-term babysitters, especially if they were loving parents. The same goes for children who seek out their real father or mother after a step-parent has raised them. There is a difference between a biological parent and the one that does the job, and it's important to see this difference so people aren't inadvertently pushing people into staying in contact with an abusive parent out of guilt or obligation, as doing so only sets up the target of abuse for further abuse. A predator. Many abusive parents are either not involved in their child's life, or if they are involved, it's only so that they can use, abuse, and exploit them. There are many children out there who have been used, abused, exploited, and neglected by these predators, and yet still keep in regular contact with them, because they are holding on to the hope that this predator can become the parent that they always wanted or needed. It's hard to give up this hope and to see these kinds of hurtful actions clearly. I once asked an abusive person why he thought targets kept going back. His answer was that hope dies last. Predators rely on their targets' continual forgiveness. They exploit their targets' hope, love, guilt, and sympathy. I know it's hard to give up the fantasy of having a loving relationship with an abusive or neglectful parent, but it will be harder in the long run to continue to live in denial of what's really going on. Parents don't steal your identity and rack up debt. Predators do. Parents don't molest their children. Predators do. Parents don't put their children in harm's way, such as making them sick, in order to get attention. Predators do. Parents don't use, abuse, or exploit their children in order to get their own self-esteem needs met. Predators do. News story. My father molested both me and my younger brother growing up, and all the adults in our lives ignored it. I cut off contact with my father the moment I moved out of that house, but my brother still not only talks to him, but has his kids around him on a regular basis. I don't know what's wrong with my brother and why he's risking his children this way when he knows what our father is like. Actually, I do know why he does this. It's because our whole lives we were pushed into thinking that we needed to forgive him and that he was our father, so that we should have him in our lives unconditionally. Sick, sick, sick. And I've gotten to the point where anyone who defends my father's actions is cut out of my life too. I don't know how people justify the actions of a child molester or why they'd have them around their children. A parent doesn't target a child like that, but a predator does. Scott. Wanting a person in your life versus needing a person in your life. Wanting a person in your life. Wanting a person in our life is where we are being choosy about who we let into our inner circle based on how they treat us and the positive emotions we feel when we are around them. The people in a healthy inner circle are those who are empowering, encouraging, and have our best interests in mind. There is open, honest, sincere, and solutions-oriented communication, and they love and accept us for who we are. These kinds of people enhance our life, and if we are in their inner circle too, then the benefit to them would be the same. Being choosy about people you let into your life, and especially into your inner circle, is what an abundance mindset looks like in motion. It's making the shift from hoping to be chosen by someone and that they will like us, to realizing that there are a lot of great people on this planet, and realizing that having great people in our life is something that we can have too. When we make this mindset shift, we stop making other people our whole life, and instead build up a life we love, and make other people the candles on the cake, instead of making them the whole cake. And because this other person isn't our whole life, if they start mistreating us, then we are able to either address it, reset boundaries, or walk away, even though it still hurts like hell. We aren't in a state of desperation, trying to keep a toxic relationship or friendship afloat, because we've raised our standards and expectations for how we are to be treated. Needing a person in your life. Needing a person in your life is making the other person the whole cake. Needing other people is a sign of scarcity and often codependent thinking. This is the kind of thinking that often comes from being lonely, or being afraid to be alone, or being afraid of being alone, and thinking that we need another person to feel complete. If a person is continually clinging to people in an effort to not be alone, then odds are they aren't being choosy enough about who they are clinging to. And the irony is, if they are clinging to a person, regardless of how that person treats them in an attempt to stave off being alone, they will usually find themselves continually hurt, abandoned, and alone because they are clinging to either all the wrong people or needing too much from all the right people, which pushes all the right people away. Needing someone is the equivalent of "you complete me," which feeds into the destructive and disempowering mentality that it takes two halves to equal a whole. In reality, when two incomplete people come together, hoping that the other one will complete them, what happens is that they join into a codependent relationship, and cling to each other out of a dysfunctional blend of clinging, fear of being alone, caretaking, enabling, and controlling, trying to fix the other person so that the other person will treat them lovingly, because they don't know how to treat themselves with love. If a person is relying on someone else to make them feel loved, safe, or secure, then if that person leaves or starts to become abusive, they will have a hard time leaving because there is no solid sense of them that can readily leave or move forward. This isn't to say that having needs or expectations of your partner is somehow wrong or bad. It's not. It's okay and normal to have needs, and for you to try to get those needs met. However, this becomes a problem if we get tangled up with a person or people who continually try to use guilt or shame into making us think that wanting anything more than crumbs of their kindness, loyalty, attention, or affection is somehow us asking too much. A healthy relationship is one where two people are already whole, know how to meet their own needs, consciously choose the other person to be in their life because of who that person is and the emotional value they bring into the relationship. News story. I had always gone through life feeling unloved and unimportant. I was quick to cling onto anyone who showed any crumbs of kindness towards me, and the vast majority of the time, those people turned out to be abusive. I now don't look to others for approval or love. I've learned how to love myself, and I now love myself enough to walk away from the wrong people, instead of clinging to them, hoping they'd change because I needed them to love me or because I needed a friend. Sandra. News story. I did not feel loved, safe, or secure, since all of my toxic relationships were very long-term, father, sister, brothers, long-term boyfriend. Once I began to awaken from the fog and to experience this awareness of not feeling loved, safe, and secure, I began to try to set boundaries in an effort to save these relationships. My boundaries were promptly annihilated, smashed through, or ignored. And to request better treatment when my trust was broken, or when I felt unfairly or abusively treated, was where the real games and the real pain began. My CPTSD flashbacks were almost constant. All of these problematic people were masters of telling me that it was my expectations that were the problem, and that I was trying to control them, and that I simply had to accept them as they were, warts and all. And the abuse continued to escalate with each boundary I set and with each request for better treatment that I made. Anyway, my point is, and I have been struggling with this concept myself lately, and I've been trying to come to grips and to terms with the idea that it is okay if I have needs. It is normal to have needs, and there is nothing wrong with needing to feel safe, secure, and loved. What is not okay is to try to get those needs met with someone who is incapable of meeting those needs. That's the real problem, in my opinion. Needs are normal, but we have to find the right people when we try to get our needs met. We have to find people who deserve our trust and who can be relied upon to treat us with love and who actually want us to feel safe and secure, and not just when it's convenient for them. And we have to learn to set boundaries with them, or walk away once we realize that they are incapable of treating us with the dignity and respect that we deserve. Lucy.